watching Channel Africa Conversations.
How do we create an environment where we educate our young people? How do we make sure that in the education we access digital learning? And when we do skill them, how do we make sure that we enable them with startups or encourage them with startups? And when they do, when they are done, how do we get them funding or get them to have access to funding? All these are important. And for me, this is what we should be doing. Let's not also forget about women, who form about 50% of our population. They need to be empowered through education and also through entrepreneurship. And that's something that we're really looking at.
Hello and welcome to Channel Africa Conversations. I'm your host, Peter Ndoro. The Commonwealth is home to 56 member countries, a combined population of 2.5 billion people, and a shared goal of accelerating sustainable and inclusive growth through trade and investment. At a recent 2025 Commonwealth Trade Ministers Meeting in Windhoek in Namibia, leaders gathered to chart a bold new course, one that aims to grow intra-Commonwealth trade to $2 trillion by the year 2030. In her keynote address, newly appointed Commonwealth Secretary-General Shirley Ayorkor Botchwey urged ministers to transform the Commonwealth trade advantage into trade ambition, signalling a more proactive, dynamic approach to economic cooperation among member states. She joined me to unpack the key outcomes of the meeting, the strategic priorities ahead, and what it all means for Africa and the wider Commonwealth. Secretary General, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the channel.
Thank you, Peter.
Perhaps
Good to connect with you.
Perhaps we can begin with just your thoughts about how your new job is going.
New job is going quite well. There's a lot to be done. And so we're in the middle of getting a strategic plan for the next 5 years done. We're in the middle of consultations with the Board of Governors who represent the member states, who have approved our framework. And we've presented the 3 areas that we believe should be the focus of the Commonwealth Secretariat for the next 5 years, which is democracy, good governance, the rule of law, etc., which really is the foundation, the principles around which the Commonwealth was formed. I've also taken trade and investment as one of the key priority areas. The third is to do with climate. And of course, the important cross-cutting areas are to do with the issues of youth and women, which cut across all the 3 priority areas that we have chosen. So we are on course.
All right, let's talk a little bit about now what's taken you to Namibia, the CTMM and CBS in your new role. How are you approaching this moment of leadership for the Commonwealth's economic future?
Well, I think it's important given the environment in which we find ourselves today. A lot of tension, trade wars, trade tariffs being slapped on almost all of our countries, the tension, the international rules-based trade system, which is really fractured. So for me, this is a moment in time that the Trade Ministers Meeting is extremely important. We need to look at ways in which we can achieve shared prosperity for our member states. And so it's about looking at transformational renewal, how we use trade for shared prosperity. And so this meeting is very important, especially also the business summit which preceded the Trade Ministers Meeting, which put together policymakers, businesses, trade experts to look at ways in which we can deliver good outcomes to empower our member countries economically. I'm sure you are aware that the Commonwealth is made up of 56 countries at very different levels of economic development. Populations run from 1.2 or more billion for one country. And in some of the small countries, the small island developing states, the small states, they have populations of about 10,000. And so even in terms of population, it's very diverse. Economic development definitely diverse. So we need to look at ways in which we can share that prosperity. We can make inclusive, sustainable development policies or assist our countries to reach the point where they are able to sustain their economies in various ways.
Why was it important to bring this gathering to Africa? And what are you hearing from African business leaders on the ground?
Oh, I think it's extremely important because Africa really is central to the Commonwealth's present economic potential, and so being here is a clear message and a clear signal to the world that the Commonwealth is taking Africa's potential very seriously. What am I hearing from the leaders? The leaders are saying that we need to necessarily unlock investment to our member countries, especially to Africa. The leaders are telling us that there's a need to address non-tariff barriers because this is impeding the steady flow and trade amongst member countries. The leaders are also saying that we should make trade work for young people. We should make trade work for women. So for me, this is important. We need to enable an African solution to drive economic growth.
You mentioned young people and women. Young people in particular, given the demographic of our continent, often feel disconnected from high-level policy conversations and gatherings such as this. How are you working to make sure that they're included and their voices included when it comes to investment dialogues, business, and grassroots entrepreneurship?
I think it's important. We need to ensure that young people or prepare them to the point where they are not just bystanders. They are not just bystanders, excuse me, but that they are really involved in the whole economic space through entrepreneurships. And I'm looking at championing the Commonwealth Youth Entrepreneurs Fund. There's a need for them not to be passive or observers. We need to prepare them. We need to prepare our economies to include them because they reflect the generation that is shaping our economy. So for me, they are an important part of what we are doing. How do we create an environment where we educate our young people? How do we make sure that in the education we access digital learning so that even those in the far-served, far-reaching communities will have an education? And by doing so, we need to access digital learning for skills and innovation. We need to ensure that they are well skilled. For those who are not able to proceed through the regular educational systems, how do we skill them? And when we do skill them, how do we make sure that we enable them with startups or encourage them with startups? And when they do, when they are done, how do we get them funding or get them to have access to funding? All these are important. And for me, this is what we should be doing. Let's not also forget about women who form about 50% of our population. They need to be empowered through education and also through entrepreneurship. And that's something that we're really looking at.
So, with global tensions, the shifting alliances, rising protectionism, I wonder how the Commonwealth is positioning itself as a relevant and united force in international trade and making sure, especially the more vulnerable nations, are protected under this umbrella, which is the Commonwealth.
I think it's extremely important. Like I said, the nations that form the Commonwealth are different levels in terms of economic development. Some are so small that if they were to be left on their own, their needs and their issues will not be heard in the international institutions. And this is where the Commonwealth comes in. The Commonwealth should be the voice to advocate for such small states, small island developing states. There are about 33 of the small states, small island developing states. We have developing countries, we have least developed countries within the Commonwealth. And so there's a need to strengthen their voices, and it will be through the Commonwealth in fora like the WTO, where we are advocating for differential treatment for such countries, so that they move from the periphery of global trade into mainstream trade, global trade. So that's where we are looking at digital trade, how we integrate through digital trade, because some of them are so far away that it will be difficult for them to be included unless through digital trade. So we need to create common frameworks, and also, like I said, strengthening their voices. So we're working together to build resilient rules-based trade. And for me, this is extremely important. Inclusion is important, how to raise finance for such countries in terms of building their economic resilience, building their climate resilience as well, and also ensuring that they have access to international financial institutions and that they are being treated well.
I guess one of the important things for businesses nowadays is market access. How is the Commonwealth enabling businesses in one part of the Commonwealth to do business in another part?
So, like I just talked about the issue of preparing and building the capacity of our small states and the states that ordinarily will find it very difficult to build their trade capacities. So that's what the Commonwealth Secretariat is doing. And we're fortunate, hopefully, to launch the Commonwealth Investment Network, which looks at building capacity. It looks at sharing best practices, an initiative of the UK government, bringing together a number of countries that are looking at ways in which we can build the capacity of those who are weaker, so to speak, to be able to be involved in global trade. And for me, what is also important is what we are doing in terms of harmonization or building blocks towards an eventual free trade area. At the moment, our trading capacity within the Commonwealth is about 880 billion. We are looking to scale up to about 2 trillion by 2030. And so ensuring that every Commonwealth country is involved is extremely important. We're looking at little ways in which we can build up towards one day a free trade area, like the African Continental Free Trade Area agreement has done for African countries. And we're using these countries as building blocks. So maybe little steps like harmonizing standards, harmonizing customs documents, looking at what AFCFTA has been able to do, looking at what the PESA Plus within the Pacific is doing, and other trade areas like the Caribbean CARICOM, what they're doing. We're bringing them all together to the point where we're able to enhance our trade amongst member countries, so that eventually we'll get to the point where everybody will say that the time has come for a Commonwealth free trade area to be pursued. And that is my goal, really.
And perhaps finally, as this summit draws to a conclusion, what have you heard, and what are you hoping will be able to you use from this summit going forward?
So what I'm hoping, first of all, from this summit is for a clear voice from trade ministers that indeed our priority pillar, which is trade and investment, and what we've explained to the trade ministers in terms of how we need to include everybody and leave no country behind, is the way to go. That yes, trade is one of the key pillars that we should be pursuing. Also, how do we ensure that the voices of small states are heard? I also want them to endorse the Commonwealth Investment Network, which seeks to bring all of us into that network, to pull even the weakest or the less endowed amongst us into the Commonwealth trade space. Also, I want the meeting to agree that during the next WTO ministerial meeting, we have one voice, or we present one voice of the Commonwealth in terms of trade, what we want to see in terms of reforms of the World Trade Organization, and how the issue of small island developing states, small states, states that are on the periphery, also can be brought in through differential treatment and so on and so forth. So that common voice, I believe, is important. Also, that they endorse our proposals of how to build trade to the point that everybody is included. So sustainable inclusion in terms of trade is very important.
Secretary General, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much indeed for your time, and we wish you the very best of luck with your tenure, with your leadership, and the ambitions, particularly with initiatives such as this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peter. I'm grateful.
And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of Channel Africa Conversations. Thanks so much indeed for tuning in. And before I go, a reminder, we'd love to hear from you. On your screen now, you're going to see the places that you can contact us, social media pages. Tell us what you'd like to see more of, the kinds of conversations that you want us to have, and with who. We look forward to hearing from you. Until the next time, from me and the team, bye-bye.